Hello, America, and welcome to the Ryan Max Show. Today is 11/9/22, and we are post 1 day from elections. And I wanted to give the live shows and radio talking heads a chance to kind of say their spin and put their mark on it before I came out with an episode. I didn't want to take away from anything that you guys wanted to keep live. But here we are, 1 day away and out post-election. We still have races that haven't been counted. We still have decisions that have not been made. The House, the U.S. House currently is in the balance still, although Republicans are supposed to be picking up the majority. We could know that hopefully within a couple days once the West Coast stops counting. Currently, the Senate is up for grabs as well. There are 3 races outstanding. There's a Senate seat in Nevada. Georgia has the runoff between Warnock and Walker. And there is Arizona Senate seat. That's right. I almost forgot that one. Blake Masters is taking on Mark Kelly out in Arizona, and that has still not been counted, even though Mark Kelly is ahead slightly. So we're waiting on those 3 Senate seats. At the mark right now, it is 49-48 Republicans with those 3 seats waiting to be counted and filled. The hope is to get to 51 so they can stop some of the madness that is being pushed on us as a nation. The House, as I said, Republicans are expected to pick up majority. You need to get to 218 to obtain House majority. So far, the running total is 207 to 184. So those are your quick stats nationally. If you've been tracking on some of the media sites or wherever you go to get your election results and data, all that in details more on there. But I want to talk about what really has happened so far. I live in Illinois, obviously. So we had an election that didn't go the way most conservatives would have wanted in Illinois. But we know what state we're in. We know it's an uphill battle. And no matter how upsetting and how frustrating it can be, we have to remember that there are movements that take place. And what Darren Bailey and his campaign did throughout the state of Illinois, going up and down, east and west, and meeting everybody he can to bring out the movement to take the state back. You can't take that away from the effort that he did. And I will forever be grateful for what he did for the state, and I believe that he is not done fighting. So again, if you know the results, it's an unfortunate scenario. He worked very hard, and around his campaign, others worked very hard to get to this moment. And one county basically started the tally and kept the margin from where it finished, about 400,000 votes, and that's really the difference. So where do we go from here? Well, we pray. Like I said this morning, I was a little upset, not real so much shocked, but just kind of confused as to why there was such a low turnout and not as much of a movement as I thought there would have been across the state. Not just Darren's movement, but candidates up and down the ballot got trounced or beaten because they were in heavily Democratic districts. So they had good candidates, but we couldn't pull them over the finish line. So it's frustrating, and I think there's more work to be done. Like David Paul Blumenshine said this morning as I was listening in to the Morning Buzz, you can catch them on Cities 92.9 with Kat in the mornings, 6 to 9 weekday. But he brought up a very good point that, despite everything that's happened, we don't like the results the way they are, but we get a chance to kind of take a step back and realize how far we've come and what work is still to be done despite the efforts that were made and what we thought the outcome was going to be. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to keep chunking away at the corruption in the state. So if you're like me and you want to keep fighting, then join the fight. Help me push Illinois to the brink where we can one day turn into a Virginia where they flip multiple layers of the state. I'm never going to give up fighting. So I hope that you don't either. We can take that with what it is. But right now, the message is don't stop. This isn't the end. Keep fighting. If you love Illinois and you love to see the conservative movement keep fighting and growing, then do more locally. Run for school boards, run for local office. Continue to get the voice out and get your voice heard and vote. Elections have consequences. When you don't vote, you're another vote for Democrats in a state. So when you think that an issue is not going to bother you if you don't vote, well, you're literally counting a vote for the Democrats in the state, whether you think it or not. So I think it's important to never give up the fight. So where do we go from here? Well, we pray and we take a step back, because sometimes elections, like I said, have consequences. And it's important to look back and take a step back and kind of take a breather from all the chaos and stress and drama that went into it that one night, which we still don't have the results nationally of some of these races. So I really think it's an important part to just take a step back and think about where we're at and what we can do going forward. Be grateful for the opportunities that we have to vote in this state. We have more opportunities in this country than any other country on the planet to be able to exercise our right to vote. So don't let the voter suppression, voter fraud, voter, whatever negatively that can be twisted get you down. Continue to vote and voice your opinion. Make it loud. We had a great turnout in some of the areas of the state, but still across the board we didn't have enough for whatever reason. Midterms may not be as prominent as presidential. We don't know. But like all of you, I was upset. I was confused. I was let down by the amount of turnout that happened in the state. And nationally, here's the thing. Well, the Republicans still have a chance to take the House. They can stop some of the madness that is happening in their country. They can stop Joe Biden's policies from making it worse. Well, all this talk of the red wave happening, and it didn't really take place. So what does that mean? Well, we can still take hold of the Senate and the House and stop some of these things, but it means that you shouldn't really take much from the media and the national talking heads that are also politicians in some of these levels, because they're just agreeing with each other. You should always take things as you see them and you see fit. Listening and relying on one source or certain sources of information and stoking up your energy and getting you frustrated or psyched up for something that may not happen, that can ruin you, and it shouldn't. So I think it's important, again, turn off your TVs, turn off your radios the night after election, and just kind of take a step back, go out and do something, enjoy your life, and worry about it the next day. Because it's going to be a process before we get this thing righted. But as frustrating and downhearted as you can always remember to pray. Pray for this country, for this state, for the leaders in our state, that they continue to fight for everything that we want fixed. And that's what's important. You pray. If nothing else, just pray. Locally, and then in the state of Illinois, the races, the county levels, McLean County, where I live, is split. The county board level, there's 10 Republicans, 10 Democrats. Some of the races are still being counted. But at that point, it's split. Voters determined that there should be 10 of each at the board level. So we'll see. Remains to be seen what the county board looks like and how that's going to go going forward. There's a couple people that have been voted on the board that I completely disagree with, and I think that they have no business being in the county level position for deciding votes and how the county should be run. But again, voting has consequences. Elections have consequences. We didn't get enough votes in those contested races to get the right people in those positions, and that's what happens. This is the main theme of tonight's episode. Elections have consequences. The more you sit back and take what is happening currently and do nothing about it, you're going to reap what you sow. It's so very important to vote. Even if you don't think your vote's going to matter, vote. Flood the system. That's why it was so important they made the movement of get out the vote. It means that. It really does. So if you look at nationally, we still have running totals. Locally, we know Illinois was an uphill battle. Pritzker was called within 5 minutes. Duckworth retains a Senate seat. And out of the 17 districts, 13 or 14 of them have been filled by Democrats. So it's a very uphill battle in the state of Illinois. So it's almost a lost cause, you would think, right? But hang in there for the ones desperate to leave, to give up, and move on. Continue to stay in the fight. It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be right now. But it is a movement that Darren Bailey has started here in the state. And it's a movement that we need to continue to fight along with him. As Trump did in 2016 and his movement grew nationally, it is a movement. This isn't just a fly-by-night candidate who tried his best and didn't win. This is a grassroots movement that we can take and a learning curve going forward. So what's next? What happens if these scenarios turn out to one way or the other, right? So you have the House. If the House takes back, if Republicans take back the House, so they get to 218, 219, 220, 230, they have a majority. So right now, Democrats are in control of Congress. They control the White House. They're passing left and right legislation that you and I both know are not helping to stop the mess that's happening in America financially. We're in a free-for-all with high prices, high inflation, fuel prices. People can't heat their homes this winter in the New England area because they're running out of fuel. Food scarcity. This country is a train wreck. And it's not going to get any better. It's going to get a lot worse coming into the winter and beyond. And so you've seen this, and that's why it was so puzzling why people continued to vote Democrat after Democrat after Democrat, because it's like they ignored the issues of food prices, gas prices, inflation, schools. They ignored all that, and they continued to vote party line no matter what. And we've seen the consequences of that. It became really a one-issue vote at most levels. Abortion was a big knock. Republicans couldn't be unified in their message against abortions, and Democrats unified against Roe v. Wade. And we didn't think it would come back to do anything in the midterms. We were all told that it's not going to be an issue by the time midterms come around. Well, and I think looking at the numbers, you're seeing that that's been the opposite. Some of the most diehard liberals that want pro-choice have voted with emotion, and it's shown. They have voted against a lot of these Republicans and conservatives on top of the ballot that couldn't say restrictions on abortions, and they couldn't follow through with the same message down ballot, and it cost them. You end up splitting tickets, or you end up getting a blowout because they don't want any part of that. If you're in a conservative state or a purple state and you vote for the candidate and they say, well, I'm for no restrictions on abortions, or I'm for restrictions on all kinds of abortions, you have to give some leeway with some of your messaging, and you have to iterate that down ballot. Otherwise, it's going to come back and haunt you both like it did Pennsylvania. So nationally, right? Republicans take the House. You stop some of this madness as they're projected. Legislation goes from the House and Senate. It gets signed. Both chambers have to review it, and then goes to the president's desk. The last almost 2 years, you've seen what has happened when the Senate passes something and the House passes it, and it goes right to Biden's desk and he signs it, and it absolutely destroys the country financially. Right? We've seen that with the Build Back Better 2.0, with the Inflation Explosion Act. We've seen these massive spending bills come across Biden's desk and not even a second chance signing it. So that's some of the things that you can be hopeful for with the chamber of Congress being taken over by Republicans. The hope is that they'll be able to stop some of the spending, the free-for-all spending the Democrats are pushing through. They'll be able to stop the Trump-era policies from being rolled back. They'll be able to put up a fight and slow down this train wreck and sinking ship that is the United States. And hopefully long enough to the next election cycle where they can take the Senate. Now, the Senate's still up for grabs. There are still 3 seats available, and Republicans only have to win 2 of them to get a majority. And that's the next situation I want to talk about. So if you take the House and if you take the Senate, now you have complete control of Congress, and you can stop Biden's administration in its tracks fully. And you can also start to push legislation and push more things and push back against Biden. He may not sign it if you pass it, but at least it'll get the motion going and you can start going forward. So that's the scenario. If Republicans take both House and Senate, they can put the brakes on this, and they can even push their own legislation, get into investigations of Hunter Biden, get into investigations where COVID started. Investigate, hold hearings, but hold people accountable. The accountability of our U.S. government is gone, and Republicans have to have a mandate of holding people accountable, and it has to happen, and it only starts when they take both houses of Congress. So that's the 2 scenarios. The one scenario is you can be hopeful and proud of, at least they've taken one chamber right now. And the other scenario is that they win the Senate seat. That's a +1, and it can stop some of the things being legislative and pushed. So there's the 2 scenarios there nationally. As a state and locally, just continue to vote. Vote, and run for office. If you don't like anything that's happening in the state, run for office. I challenge you, I urge you, I pray for you, run for office. And if you want to be a part of the solutions, fight, get in the fight, speak out, be a poll watcher, be an election judge. We had a lot of opportunities to be election judges and poll watchers that we couldn't get up in Cook County to watch some of these things that were maybe miscounted or shouldn't have been counted, and they did it anyway. So get in the fight. Be an election judge, a poll watcher, run for local office. That's what you can do to help smooth things out at the state level, and then ultimately help the national level as well. So not all is doom and gloom, but those are a couple of scenarios. Now I want to touch on a couple of things that I saw from last night that I thought just blew my mind away. The first off, in Pennsylvania, as you all know, Oz lost to Fetterman. Fetterman, right? John Fetterman. Yeah, the guy who wears Carhartt hoodies because he's cool and he doesn't have a job and he's never had a job and he lives off his parents' trust money. That guy, John Fetterman. Oh, and the one who's also had a stroke. So that guy who can't speak, he can't hear, he can't think clearly, he won a Senate seat. And now he's going to be one of the Senate seats where he's going to be asked to vote on critical legislation going forward. And therein lies the scenario in which I just laid out. If the Democrats control the Senate, he is that 51 vote, and he can push through whatever he wants, even if he doesn't understand it. That boggles my mind how anybody in their right mind in Pennsylvania can vote for a guy who can't think, can't read, can't talk straight, who's just getting over a stroke. Never mind that the fact that he's had a stroke, and I don't want to put this to light that I feel bad for him that he shouldn't have been out there. But I also think that he has left a Lenin and left a Bernie Sanders. His policies are a train wreck, and if he's in the Senate thinking about these things, number one, he can't hear it, He has to have it written in front of him and read it, and he can't say it correctly what he wants to say. And just in and of itself, he's not fit for Congress. And you're going to have him making big decisions on votes going forward. So that's a scary thought. And Oz wasn't the greatest candidate. I will be the first to admit he wasn't my favorite to run in the Senate. But who else are you going to vote for? Who else is going to lead that fight? Right now, they didn't have a dog in the fight. So Pennsylvania turned out to be a flip seat. So it remains to be seen what we see there, what transpires. But hope and pray that Georgia goes to Walker and Adam Laxalt wins Nevada. We don't have to worry about any of this. Republicans will take the Senate. So that's one piece of news I wanted to get across. Also, the bigger picture going forward for Republicans. Who really is the kingmaker of the party? Who's the leader of the party? You came out and said about a red wave happening, and everybody was mad and pissed off about the Democrats and their 47 genders and their critical race theory, their COVID policies, their lockdowns, and yet here we are, and it didn't create an earthquake of conservative movements because they didn't run conservative, they didn't run legislate that way, they didn't govern conservatively. They ran as, I'm not as bad as Democrats. That has to change. There has to be a mandate going forward that, hey, these are my principles, I'm sticking to them, and you're not going to be able to move me. And too many of these candidates in these states weren't that strong conservative. You had some that were really good and they ran really well. And some of them just came up short, some of them won. But going forward, you're going to have to run true conservative candidates in order to have a powerful race. And one person that I think is truly the leader of the party going forward, as I bring this up, is Ron DeSantis. He absolutely destroyed Democrats' hopes of ever regaining power in Florida after winning his re-election last night by over a million votes. The man destroyed Democrats in Florida. He carried Rubio on his coattails in the Senate seat, and he flipped several House seats in Florida that were Democrat. He flipped Miami-Dade County. You know how hard it is to flip a very blue urban county in Florida? Very difficult. But again, it goes back to his policies. DeSantis from day one was tough on crime. He was open with COVID. He didn't let that wreck the state. He understood that the elderly and the sick were responsible care first, and he supported freedom, and he didn't want the woke culture that is rotting the rest of the country into Florida, and he stood up to it. And legislatively, he fixed the election process. 7.5 million votes, some odd, counted in one night. We knew right away that Florida was done. Yet the rest of the country is still waiting for two states with half the population of those votes cast. So I think it's tried and true that DeSantis is probably the rock star candidate for 2024 going forward. Trump had his mark on the party. He had some good candidates. He had some good wins. He had some losses. Overall, I still think he can be a prominent leader of the party behind the scenes, or even run together in this media narrative that Ron and Donald Trump are enemies is just ridiculous. Don't buy into that. But I think you can see a scenario in which Trump runs with DeSantis on the ticket, or DeSantis runs and has Kristi Noem or Sanders, Sarah Huckabee Sanders as a ticket as well. But Trump's announcements next week will come, and we'll see what he says. I don't know if he's going to plan on running or not, but that will be determined and it shouldn't be determined what Ron would do. I think DeSantis should run even if Trump was running. But that's just me. But I think we have a clear leader of the Republican Party, and that's what it takes. DeSantis is Trump 2.0, and the left hates him. He's articulate. He's bold. He's not afraid to go after the woke, and he's fixed Florida, and he's entrenched it in Republican control and conservative control forever going forward. It's going to be a very hard state to flip back to blue or purple because of the leadership that he has done in Florida. And he's grown the state of Florida population-wise. So overall, I think we still have some races that we're going through. Take a deep breath, pray for the country, pray for your state, pray for your leaders, and take it one day at a time. We will get over this. It's a movement. It's going to take time to keep chipping away at the corruption and the terrible things that have happened so far. But this isn't over. Elections have consequences. We lost some, we won some last night. We got to keep moving. Got to keep moving along, keep chipping away at the corruption. I'm also reminded, as I was going through my notes for tonight's episode, I have a journal that I write my notes in, and it's got Bible verses at the end of each note page. And I think this verse completely feels appropriate, given everything going on the last few weeks and the last couple months, really the last couple years. But I think it's important to remember that no matter where you are, be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And that's from Joshua 1:9. Remember that. Be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. That's important, and it hit just right. No matter what happened last night, no matter what happens going forward, God is good all the time. And all the time, God is good. He is with us. He will get us through this. This is a storm that we will weather together with him. So remember that. Pray and ask God to get us through this. Guys, we're in a fight together. I'm right there with you. Stay tuned next week. Follow me on Facebook at The Ryan Mack Show and wherever you get your podcasts. Good night.